Growth comes when a couple of things come into play and gel well. First is a very, very clear understanding on what that growth is. Before even you know how to get there, you need to know what you're aiming. And that isn't just about somebody sitting down in a coffee table discussing that this is what we want to do. It is also having a very clear set of goals to say that this is what we will call as a success. Because growth is a very vague word, but success criteria is a very defined word.
Hello, everyone. So, my name is Siddharth Stephen, and once again, we are back on this Seekho 101 session with one of the thought leaders. And today, we share the stage. I specifically share the stage with one of the most brilliant minds, I would say. So, his name is Vinod Chandramouli, and he is right now the head of Asian business at Freshworks. Apart from that, he has a very decorated profile altogether. He has a very strong background and expertise which he comes from. And without taking much of the time, so obviously I would hand over the stage to Vinod. So Vinod, why don't you give a brief introduction to the audience as to where you come from and your expertise?
Thank you very much for having me, Siddharth. It's a pleasure to be part of this platform. I really think that it's a great platform to learn directly from a lot of it. So I'm hoping to get some learning myself through this platform. But my name is Vinod. I run the Southeast Asia business for Freshworks. And I've been with Freshworks for a little over 6 years now. I come from a long history of technical consulting and business development experience across multiple organizations, across multiple geos as well. The longest I spent was in Asia and Asia Pacific, especially in South Korea, Japan, Singapore. And even in my current role, I spend a lot of time in this region. So I consider myself to be a new age salesperson. Thanks to all the technology stack around available for a lot of different people, it's so much more easier to derive anything out of technology. So I'm a very heavy user of whatever it can to help boost my productivity through technology. I have about 18 years of support and consulting experience. I started my career supporting Windows 98 and Windows XP back in the day. If a lot of you still remember those operating systems, and then I grew up liking technology and coupling that with storytelling. So I found my forte in technical consulting, where I could really go deeper into understanding the technology and at the same time sell the value of products, which is how I got into pre-sales. And then I moved into Freshworks to lead their global pre-sales team. And then over time, I got really bored about just the technology piece, and I wanted to tell stories in different way. And then I decided to take on the Southeast Asia role, and then see where it goes. So today, I manage all types of businesses, from go-to-market strategy to sales to post-sales support for 6 or 7 countries in Southeast Asia for Freshworks.
Wonderful, Vinod. 18 years. Wow, that's like a good chunk of knowledge and bank repository altogether. So great. We are really looking forward to this one-on-one session. Okay, so to start with, just to lighten up the mood, so rather than heading straight away into those serious question and answers, let's have this rapid fire. So the rapid fire is, again, it's going to be simple, 5 questions. Whenever the question is pushed out to you, whatever comes up to your mind within the next 2 to 5 seconds, you can answer it. It doesn't really necessarily have to be like that long, but even if you're able to give it like within a sentence, that works. You ready?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Perfect. So the first question is, given a chance to speak on a national podium for an hour, what would it be about?
Oh, it would be maybe about either photography or electronic dance music.
Oh, okay. So I believe that's like your hobby, maybe? It's a hobby or interest?
It is.
Yes. Perfect. Great. So that explains the 1 hour of sharing that national podium.
Yeah, nobody wants to listen to my professional talk for an hour, believe me, especially on national stage. So yeah.
Great, perfect. So the next question, second one is the famous personality or celebrity you would love to be a neighbor of.
Oh, that's a good one. Um, hmm. I would love to be a neighbor of. I'm a big fan of Formula One. So maybe one of the Formula One drivers, maybe. I don't know.
Karthikeyan?
Somebody. No, somebody international. I'm going
Okay.
to go international if I were to do it. Obviously, I'm from Coimbatore, which is where Narayan
Okay.
Karthikeyan is from. So, sort of neighbors already I could consider. But somebody I was thinking like a Kimi Raikkonen or somebody like that.
Ah,
But yeah, some famous person.
perfect. All right, great. So this is fun. All right. So the third one is that one quote or even a book would change the way you look at things.
Oof. Well, there are many. I have a personal library of about 1,000 odd books. I don't read a lot of business and personal development books per se. I read, my interests are very different. But recently I chanced upon a book by David Eagleman called The Brain. It really talks about how human brain operates in a um, more, I would say, easy to understand for common people like you and I, and doesn't necessarily have to be complex. It really gave me a very, I think, clear understanding on some of the complexities we have, and it sort of helped me derive the empathy I could have with the other person, because every mind is so unique and different, and that we should respect it more than hate it.
Perfect. So I am actually listing that down. I'm going for that book for sure. So this is definitely my next go-to book now. Okay. So the next one is okay. This is a little unique. That one silly mistake which you still remember this day.
Many of it, actually. I don't know how many I could really count. Um, there was a point where I was traveling so much that I was on the road most of the time that I went into a country, walked into the hotel, and then I completely blanked out on which country I was in, what hotel I was in. I'd just been traveling for 24 hours straight. That I paused and I asked the receptionist, "Could you just tell me where am I and what hotel is this?" Because there were so many Hiltons around. I felt very embarrassed because they thought I was some lunatic walking in without knowing which country it was. But I was also dazed and jet lagged. But yeah, that's probably something I can think about.
I now I can actually sort of think as to why you still remember that. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you with this one. Okay. So this is like a sort of a signature rapid fire question which we usually ask like every other thought leader. So this one is that one lesson you learned from life and tell every other person about.
Oh, I mean, if I can do it, I think anybody else can. I came up with absolutely no background or ambition or a growth plan or any of it, and I still don't consider myself to have a solid plan. What I know is I have a very honest set of principles, and as long as I'm able to do those principles and align myself, I think that works well. And take one day at a time. I feel like that is also something which I've learned to do.
Ah, perfect. One day at a time is obviously, I've heard this, to be very honest, I've heard this a lot from, some coming up thought leaders. And I think that does the trick rather than just jumbling up everything all together and grasping it. Why don't you just go one by one and, achieve everything that you have planned for the next day? Brilliant.
Correct.
Great, Vinod. So that wraps up the rapid fire. I thoroughly enjoyed it and I hope you enjoyed it too.
Thank you.
Great. So now let's move on to the main question and answer round. So over here, I'll basically ask you questions one by one. So we at Seekho, we obviously promote micro learning. So we ask the thought leaders if they can basically frame that answer within the next maybe like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. So if you're able to do that, perfect. If let's say you feel that obviously 2.5 minutes is still too less and you would like to elaborate it, you can still actually go ahead and you can elaborate the answer. We won't stop you. Okay. So the very first question is, to be very honest, majority of the people out there, they still are, they are aware of like sales, marketing, customer service, now customer success, but pre-sales is still as a sort of a something new for them. So why don't you help us as to what exactly is pre-sales?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a quote I keep referring that nobody teaches pre-sales in college. They teach sales, they teach marketing, they teach even today. I think these days customer success is somewhere thought about. But pre-sales, and to be fairly honest with you, until I got in as a pre-sales engineer in my previous company, the existence of a pre-sales team was also unheard of. It is also predominantly because pre-sales as a role is more evident in product organizations than in services organizations. And technology in itself has been very heavily services oriented rather than product. I think product in itself has picked up, and there are many SaaS companies thanks to cloud and everything else. Only in the last, I would say, 10 years, I've seen the pre-sales as a role has also become larger. But there is a whole large community of pre-sales group across multiple industries, across multiple organizations as well. And like I said in the introduction, what led me to pre-sales was my inclination towards technology. I am a commerce graduate. I don't know how to write a single line of code myself. And oftentimes technology or a role related to technology led to believe that you have to really know the engineering world for you to become a technical expert. But some of my, even in my Freshworks world, some of the best pre-sales engineers I know don't even come from the engineering background. In fact, one of the best pre-sales engineer I know is a BA in English literature. But the reason why all of us were attracted, at least I personally was attracted towards pre-sales, was the idea of going deeper into a particular conversation and really unearthing the simplicity of it. So, for example, if I were to ask you to sell me a phone, you would usually tell me the features of the phone. You would usually tell me the how much it costs, and you would ask me those questions. Now, that's a very typical sales mentality that a lot of people usually have. And depending on what you say next, I would make my decision depending on what marketing is done. If you're told me that it's an iPhone, then I won't bother about the price. I'll only talk about the uniqueness of it, the look of it. Versus if you're told me that your budget is for a Redmi, then I'd probably drive value in comparing other phones. And these are things you take. But when it comes to pre-sales, the understanding of the phone goes just beyond the features it provides, but also personal value I could derive out of you, right? You working in Seekho do these interviews many a times. So as a pre-sales engineer, my first thought would be, can I perhaps tell you, Siddharth, the next time you are sitting in an interview like this, would you want the camera quality to be like an iPhone or like anything else? Which would you say is better? And that comes from understanding what the solution you want to provide to what the problem that person is bringing on the table. And when I mean that person in large organizations, it could be a business conversation on the other side. Like in Freshworks, somebody wants to buy a customer service software, then you sort of drive value. So I think pre-sales in a sense is unheard because the value-driven selling is just recently been picked up, as recent as 10, 11 years. And every successful salesperson out there will tell you that value selling is the best way to go, which is why I decided to make a career out of pre-sales for most part of my life.
Perfect. Great. So now that we know about pre-sales and obviously that you have an expertise and you have been through that journey of pre-sales. So as per you, some key skills, basically, if let's say now people are wanting to opt for pre-sales, okay, let's go ahead and let's see what exactly is pre-sales. As per you, what are the key skills that probably an individual or a professional should have if they're opting for pre-sales?
I think it depends on where they are in terms of the domain expertise they get, because oftentimes pre-sales can go very deeply into a domain they play in, right? If you are in the world of There are pre-sales engineers even in the world of oil and energy consulting selling. In the big four companies, they are called consultants because they drive the value in a larger scale. But there are also different domains, and I'm not talking about the Java or the technical domain. I'm talking about the industry you want to be part of, right? Do you want to be an e-commerce specialist, or you want to be a media and OTT specialist? So if the idea is for you to go deeper into a particular domain, if you have a skill set to be a lot more interested in understanding the basic level of what you understand. So, for example, one of the concepts we think about in pre-sales, or at least in Freshworks we think about, is taking a complex problem and seeing if we can make it as simple for somebody to understand. So this is called explain like I'm 5. Like as if I'm a 5-year-old, I want you to explain something to me. Now, if these things interest somebody, and it's a skill for them where they are thinking about taking something complex and making it simple, understanding the core basics of it, and then extrapolating these information. These come with linear logical thinking. These come with going deeper, doing some research on it, and then coming to a conclusion rather than attending. So if these are interests, then I would say they are thinking about the right place for pre-sales. Now, some of the skills I often look for is somebody who's able to articulate something in a very clear way. So communication is key here. It isn't the email you send. It isn't the PPT you prepare. It is without an email or a PPT, are you able to drive value? Because oftentimes that's what is expected out of a pre-sales engineer. That's one. The second one is what happens when you're thrown to make a very quick decision. How do you go about making these decisions? Because sometimes pre-sales engineers often do a product showcase. If I'm selling an iPhone, I'll show you some of the features. Or if I'm selling a Freshworks, I'll talk about doing a demo of the product. Or if I'm selling Seekho, then I'm going to be talking about the value you're providing. This could be either in the form of a physical device or a PPT or a product demo or whatever. The showcasing, it's not just show and tell. It's more to do with what's the value? How are you articulating? What's the story you're able to say? Are you able to understand what the other person is thinking and stuff like that? So these are sort of the primary skills I look for. One is the value selling concept, the articulation of it. Then the second one is the technical / the domain expertise, but not necessarily pure code driven technical, but it's going to the basics and understanding.
Perfect. Got it. So, two things. So, guys, please take a note of it if you're actually going forward for a pre-sales thing. Okay. So, Vinod, the next one is, so this has been a little interesting question. I would really love to hear your insight. So, basically, your insight on whether business development is important or sales.
I don't think there's any difference between both of it, to be fairly honest with you. I think it's more titles organizations have put together to build out career paths, but in true sense, business development has many different meanings. It depends on who you talk to. I come from the world of business development where it's a lot more complex development of opening up a new line of business for organization. And that has nothing to do with today's world of business development where the business development title is given to people who set up meetings, people who move the deal from one stage to another, usually is also considered to be business development. And depending on which organization you take, I think business development is the title. But to me, even if you were to consider business development in the today's sense of what SaaS companies think business development, which is the SDRs and the BDRs, the account development, and then you were to also think about sales, it really depends on where you want to spend, what excites you in terms of customer journey. In the world of sales, there is a logic called hunting and farming, which is you hunt for new customers and then you nurture and grow the existing customers. So the hunters go and hunt for new logos, and then the farmers are handling existing customers and grow them and whatever, they will cross-sell and upsell and all of that, right? So the business development role in an ideal world is created for the salespeople to only focus on closing the business, while the business in itself is brought on the table by the business development people. That's in true sense in a sales cycle where they would end and go. But in the same sense, the next question I could ask somebody if they'd ask me this question is, do you think sales is better than support? It depends on where you are, right? I mean, support is required post-sale for you to keep your customer happy. Very similarly, business development is required for you to get the funnel, your sales funnel sort of created. So if somebody asks me this question, I would say both are required. So forget about it being important. Tell me, what is your place? Do you want to really focus on only handing out accounts over? You want to create that urgency and hand it to somebody for them to close? Or do you like are you passionate to see that getting closed, going through the contract negotiation phase and closing it? If you think that's your skill, then sales is better for you. But if you think you're better in this, then you can always go. But it's also interchangeable. A lot of people I know have moved to business development, leading large teams, or have come from business development and have become great salespeople as well. It's also a skill you want to develop more than anything else.
Perfect. So I also remember, there was I completely agree with you over here. So there has always been this debate that, which one is better. Some people say, it's definitely sales because that's like straight away contributing towards the revenue. And then some people say that we are bringing opportunities to you, right? So there's like a never ending battle which happens. And you rightly mentioned, I still remember there was this article which I remember I was reading, and that was more on how these both, I would say, roles were simply cut in and divided. So I remember there was a person who was in an organization. This was like internationally. Apologies, I don't remember the exact thing. And it clearly stated that there were some people who were good, which you very precisely said. There were some people who were really good with closing deals, right? So these were like, you give it to them and they close it right there. And there were some people who were, really good with churning those opportunities. So if a churning person tries to go to close a deal, that won't happen. So what they did, they simply divided those, two things. One becomes a business developer and the other becomes a salesperson. So, and that's how the entire thing, now where we are, it's like they're like two different designations, but it's like, it's a sort of a same thing. Which class section do you actually look at? That's all about it.
Correct.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Vinod. All right. So the next one that I have for you is, so now since we are talking about a little bit of business development, and obviously we know that, you come a little bit from the business development side too. So best ways for a business developer to actually identify those opportunities to expand the business.
Yeah. It is a tough world, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest skill I've come to a realization a business development person has to have is the skill to handle rejection, because you and I are very familiar with what happens when a bank calls you and says, do you need personal loan? That's what they're doing in a true sense, right? They're calling CTOs, CIOs, depending on what he or she's selling. And oftentimes, or most of the time, you're faced with the rejection, and the biggest rejection is silence in itself. You just don't know whether the other person got it. And especially when you've got to talk about newer regions where A, the brand may not be there. B, they don't know who you are when you call or send an email or use any of the new age social selling techniques and the school of it. So yeah, it is very tough to do. But a couple of things I always think works well, especially I've started a couple of regions ground up, and I've seen a lot of these business development executives also deal with this. Is the first one is the key is experimentation. Because it's a newer region, you get to experiment without worrying about failure, which means that you can also choose the right experimentation you want to do. The term, some of the terms we use in this sales world one is called spray and pray, which is you spray to entire TAM you have, which is your total addressable market, and then you're hoping and praying that somebody responds to it. It works if you're selling to a $10 or $20, say you're on Spotify or even a StreamYard business development executive, and each license costs $10, and that's it. Then you could reach out to large people via email, via Google AdWords, and then you could, whatever lead comes in, then you're sort of picking it up, or whatever you can. That's one. The second one is the upper you go, which is your mid-market and enterprise teams, which is where you would very clearly see the split, and you would see large teams in business development and large teams in sales. Is the key to experimentation is taking a small bucket of it and then experimenting by setting a milestone, right? So what I usually suggest to my teams is, if you are taking 100 set of accounts, take 10 of it and ensure that you're reaching to 3 or 4 people in that 10. And that's it for this particular day or a week, or depending on the frequency of information you're sending it out. And then learn from it, but don't give up on those 10 and move to the next 10. Add on top of it. So you continue to follow up this 10, then you're starting a new learning on top of this. And that's one. The second key is the research you do in your business or your vertical. So let's just say a business development executive is starting part of a new vertical. It could be e-commerce. Then understanding the basics about retail, understanding the basics about e-commerce really helps. Right? Going through what a user would go through, going through what an organization would do, understanding the business model, being curious about it. I think those really help take you as a credible person when you pick up the phone and talk to the other person. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time. And then the third is really to handle this rejection by spinning the positivity, which is every rejection is a great platform for you to get feedback on how this performed. If you send 10 emails and 6 of them came back saying, don't send me emails, then you know that you looked at 10 emails. Why did these guys say? Are they part of a government vertical? Did they get, then you'll get your answers. So the key is experimentation through solid research, and then learning from the failure, which is the rejection you get every day, and then go back and experiment and research and learn and sort of do this as a big circle.
Perfect. Great. So I really loved how you broke it down into those simple, 4 to 5, pointers, and, how you explained it, and specifically the research and the other, those simple examples on emails, and then, research. As in, the best part over here that I really liked about your answer is that you need to be consistent, but you don't have to be impatient at the same point in time. If you're a business developer, right? You can't just simply say that if this didn't really work out, then you would simply give up. So, so that's something that I really like. Okay, so the next question. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so this would actually help majority of people, probably people of customer success, customer service, even business developers. This has been the pain area. So this is why I would love to have your insight. So key things as per you, which has worked wonders when maintaining relationship with clients.
I think a couple of big things I often look for is, I don't look at a client as a client, and I've always felt the need to genuinely build a relationship or not, because they can see through. Anybody can see through, right? And if you'd invited me over, and I gladly accepted to come and do this session. But if I am doing this because somebody is putting a gun on my head, or if I'm doing this because I don't like it but I'm being forced to do it, you will know it automatically as a person, and I think the audience would know it themselves. So to me, I learned this lesson a long time ago, and this lesson is, if somebody is giving you a seat on table and telling you are now, sitting on this table to build a relationship, then it's up to you to decide whether you want to sit. But once you sit down on the table, then you give your 100%, even if you don't get that 100% from the other party. It could be anybody. It could be a personal relationship. or it could be even the professional relationship. I've always felt the need to be giving my 100% to it. Because every communication and interaction you have has an effect on you as an individual as much as the other person does. So if you are walking into a conversation, where in a customer conversation, if you're walking into an irate customer, sure, you are going to be tough and it's going to be a tougher thing. But you can only imagine how much anxiety the other person is having because they are irate, right? And as long as you understand that, and as long as you're able to put that person as a human, take a breathe in and then look at it, a lot of, I think, relationship can be salvaged. The second, I think, very key is being transparent. And when I mean transparent, I'm not talking about, always be truthful, sure, but know when to talk and know when not to talk. In the business parlance, knowing when not to talk could help you lead bigger deals, larger deals, because you're not blurting out something. So in that way, it's there. But knowing when to talk is really, if you had dropped the ball, if you, as an organization, if I manage large accounts, I've managed large accounts, multi-million-dollar accounts, and I've had many situations where we've dropped the ball. There's been a human error which has led to a delay in implementation. Rather than trying to make it up in a very, pull out 100 things and saying your team did it or put the blame, it's often great for us to pause and say, yep, we made a mistake, I apologize, but I am owning the responsibility of solving for this. And I own it to closure because I care for this relationship. Two things happens. One is, if you do this the first time, they're probably not going to believe you. But the fact that you said it and followed up by executing it and solving for it and sending out the very clear message that you involve me and I'll help you solve for it, builds the trust in the other person. And not that the second time it won't happen. It will happen because we are all human beings, right? We are here to make mistakes. We are not perfect machines. And there are companies, it's a product, it's built by humans, and we are all here to make. But as long as you can very clearly tell them that if I drop the ball, I'm not going to wash my hands and walk away. But as a company, we're going to take care of you. I'm a representative. To me, that also really helps in building business. So I feel like giving 100% and also ensuring that that transparency is kept and trusted, I think goes a long way. I've been able to get out of very tough situations. I've been able to manage customers walking away from us and bringing them back in. In fact, some of the largest deals I've gotten have been customers who initially were very frustrated with us. And then we converted them and showed them the value because they know we mean business only if we can prove to them. And to me, I think these two are very key in holding relationships for a longer time.
Completely agreed, Vinod. So over here, I think something I could, if I put it in one word, so I think empathize is, something that you really have to have that sort of a skill, that you put yourself in the customers or probably the other person's shoes and then think it the way that they are thinking. And that's, the key of the solution right there. You will actually be able to understand that, okay, where they are coming from. And that's how you basically drive those solutions out, every single moment. Great. Awesome. So we are doing great. We are almost at the end of the question. So this is like the second last question that I have for you. Although I personally, I want the Q&A to long laster, but again, I won't do that. So, okay. So the next one that I have for you is, this is again a little bit related to business expansion and everything, because this has been some of the burning questions which we have got a lot on Seekho. So basically the things to keep in mind when you're driving the growth of a business. What are those key things as per you?
I think the first thing is, what is the definition of growth and how ambitious are you with that growth, right? There is a long-term growth, there is an immediate growth. That immediate growth is usually your manager's expectation of you. That's an immediate growth, right? Because, I've done many roles and most of my roles have been started off with very objective driven and then became subjective. Some of my roles have been very subjective driven, and then after they've seen the results, sort of become. But to a well-defined growth, or growth comes when a couple of things come into play and gel well. First is a very, very clear understanding on what that growth is. Before even you know how to get there, you need to know what you're aiming. And that isn't just about somebody sitting down in a coffee table discussing that this is what we want to do. It is also having a very clear set of goals to say that this is what we will call as a success. Because growth is a very vague word, but success criteria is a very defined word. So if people can start thinking about growth from a definition perspective, it could even be a simple vision to start with. And everybody agrees that this is the vision you want to go after. Once that is done, then it becomes a programmatic approach towards it, which is you break it down into immediate needs, you break it down into long-term needs, and then you go from there. So that's one. I look at defining the goal as one. Second, like I told you, I come from the world of new age technology. I've been born and brought up in the Web 2.0. And there are hundreds of productive, experienced experts out there. There are thousands of materials on the internet. So the second key to growth is planning. Somebody told, there's a quote I read many years ago, which it said, surprisingly, 100% of people who plan seem to succeed all the time, which means that people who really plan and plan for both success and failure are always luckier to have done something and have gone about. So that's one. It also means that if you're aiming to be, so for example, let's just say I define a set of goals for my growth and say I want to get to this in 3 months, and I want to get to this in 6 months, and I want to get to this in 9. Your planning should be in a way that it should be both taking you to the 9-month journey and also helping you with the 3 months. So you've got to break it down. The more you plan, you could even get to your 9-month goal in 6 months if you can really plan your way through, right? And that planning is very crucial. Now, that planning comes with the third aspect of growth, which is collaboration. And without you collaborating with like-minded people, nothing can happen in this. If I am expected to grow, and if I'm the only one expecting to grow, it's not going to happen. Even a simple organism like a plant grows only when there is water, when there is sun, when the lighting conditions are there, and all of it has to work together for it to grow. So if you are self-centered and you believe that you're the only one who's enabling growth, then it is going to fail at some point. Because at the planning stage, you're going to realize that every growth requires somebody else's support. So collaboration leads and better planning, and then looking at a well-defined growth and goals, I think is very key for anybody to grow. And if you can nail all of this, you'll either grow really well, or you would be in a very open mind to know where you lost and then continue to lead. And to me, that is even growing too. If you can realize where you lost and then continue to focus on growth.
Perfect. I thoroughly enjoyed how you placed that answer. So I truly enjoyed how you were giving those pointers, and specifically with respect to growth. And I really agree to that one point that you say. Everyone say that, let's have a growth plan, but there right away the next thing that comes up is how to start, how to plan, where to basically come from, and then all those jumbling thoughts that come to your mind right away. So I really like how you broke it down. So plan it step by step. So it doesn't really have to be that you're only talking about your growth. You have to have like a holistic picture altogether when you're planning in that sort of a manner. Wonderful, Vinod. Okay, so the last question. So this is, I would really love to hear this one from you. So, so this one is, I know that you have been in, in those 18 years of experience now, you are at a leadership role, and you have been in the leadership role for quite a while. And there are other people out there who still are, they're like aiming for there, and they want to have that sort of an insight. Okay, what is that key thing that works for them? And, if something like that can work for us. So the question revolves with that what are the key skills or attributes that you gained throughout your experience and made you a successful leader?
I don't know if I'm a successful leader. I actually don't like the word leader at all. And to be fairly honest, I have always ensured in my career, out of these 18 years, I would say only about 6 or 7 years did I truly manage large teams. And I've always felt the need to jump in and out of being. There is no such thing called a leader. There is no definition, and I'm not a leader. If I'm a leader, you're an as much leader as I am. So it's very relative, that word leadership is. But I'll tell you, in the last 18 years, I've come to two realizations. One is the rat race is very real. People do get influenced with what other people want to do. And the line is always, for a lot of people, including myself when I began my career, was always to get to the top. But we always assume that the top is a CX or the top is a title. But midlife, at least I realized it halfway through, that sometimes you can get to the top by just looking at where you are and walking straight parallelly and still be able to meet that person on the top in many different ways, right? For example, I come from schools and colleges where you do engineering at a prestigious institute, then you do an MBA at a prestigious institute, then you get to be a consultant, then you work 80 to 100 hours a week for you to get to second tier college, and I studied I studied commerce. I didn't do an MBA, and I was doing contact center work. Half the people did not want to do. But to me, if I had not done any of those, I would not be where I am. Sure, if I had done an MBA, I would have gone everywhere. But there was nothing wrong in what I did, and I ended up. I wouldn't call myself a leader, but I survived these 18 years in as happy way as somebody else would if they don't run the rat race. So to me, the first thing would be, if you are thinking about being a leader, you're joining the rat race. Don't think about it. You don't need to go to a leadership role in a title or anything, because the title is a very temporary thing. It's an edit button on LinkedIn most of the time. Right? It isn't anything permanent. Then it goes. For everybody, it changes. So, first thing I would urge people to think about is, what is that skill you almost want to marry into for the rest of your life that you're going to be happy about? My skills have always been storytelling and communication. And I will focus all my energy on growth. And that growth comes with what is the definition of a growth, what is the planning of the growth, and collaboration. And I think of my career growth the same way. Right? So that's the first thing, is if you're striving to be a leader, if you're just getting started in your career, then A, you've got a long way to go. But B, you're looking at it all wrong. You're going to face a brick wall, because every time you end up, your HR is not going to let you, the internal promotion's not going to come. You're chasing the wrong thing. Versus if you can chase and put the same interest and curiosity in building your skill, then the growth automatically comes for you, because after a certain point, you're just slated to grow. Then you get to choose. At some point, you're going to be sitting in front of another person like this, and they're going to call you a leader, but technically you aren't a leader. You just followed what your heart said and your skill was. So to me, that's the first thing. The second one is, you don't necessarily need to manage large teams to be a leader. That's not growth. It's not the manager, senior manager, director, senior director. That's a very HR, organizational appointment order. The maximum use I've gotten away from is, I've gotten a faster response in personal loan application than anything else with the title. Because, if you have a larger title, probably you get, that's it. To me, I think what you need to do, like I said, is skill. So I've gotten many roles where I've consciously made an effort from moving from a leadership role, managing large teams, to being an individual contributor, because to me, that's the greatest thing. I'll tell you, being a leader is actually really lonely. Not that I like to do. Being at a senior director level, it's very lonely, right? You're always considered to be the boss, although you are not. And I hate somebody calling me, right? You're not invited to any of these cool parties simply because you are the boss. And it's a tag you don't want it. At least personally, I never wanted it. But most importantly, people don't tell you whether you're doing things wrong simply because you have that title. And that means I'm curtailing learning. Who's going to tell a CEO of a large organization that in this meeting you did it wrong? Nobody is going to tell a CEO of that out. But maybe there are CEOs or maybe there are people like me who want to learn from it. But it's a very lonely thing. So I always go back into being an individual contributor. So I take the title quotient away. And now I'm put outside my comfort zone where I don't have the power of my team. I have to think about a lot of it. And it helps me being relevant. It helps me learn a thing or two from it. So the first, obviously, different tangent than people are often looking for. But to me, if you're looking to be a leader, well and good, it's great. But if you think that leadership comes from title, then don't, because you're going to have a heartache very soon. But if you think leadership is coming from, or the passion towards being a leader is coming from skill development and all, then absolutely you're already on the path, and you're probably already a leader getting towards that in many different ways.
Awesome. I must say, so like I said, I was really looking forward to this answer from you. Really, I truly enjoyed, how you specified certain things with majority of the leaders out there. I personally feel are still sort of lacking, wherein they still emphasize. I really liked how you said you don't emphasize on the word, right? Emphasize what's within you. That's like the skill, and then go for it. Right? Why follow the rat race? And I can very well relate to it. I can somehow. So I myself have like 11 plus years of experience already, and I can clearly sort of, see that I also was trying to follow at a point in time that specific rat race that go for top.
Everybody does it, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's like the sad part. That's what the students and every other people, they teach you. So there's like a set of pattern that they teach you. But this is something that you gain by experience, and your experience that you gained. This is exactly what it teaches you. So awesome, great. So we are done with the Q&A. I will actually stop bombarding you with questions now. I still have plenty more.
I loved it.
So thank you.
I loved all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I truly loved the way that you answered them. They were elaborative. They were with examples. Some of them were really crispy and specifically some really minute examples. I love the fact that you even gave an example of something like, when we were talking about leadership and nurturing. So you gave an example of like a plant. So, that's something that's very unique. So thank you so much for obviously being here. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it as well, along with the rapid fire.
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, I loved everything of it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you so much. So, guys, this is the conclusion of the 101 session. I hope you guys enjoyed it to the best, because I certainly did. Vinod shared some beautiful insights to take back to your home. So, please do. And obviously, as we are coming up for the next 101 session with a thought leader, so meet us again. Stay tuned, because we are again coming back with one more powerful thought leader similar to Vinod. So, stay tuned, guys. Take care.